Parents Josh Lamont and Jessica Murray, grandmother Shannon Murray, and transgender grandparent Josie Murray have refused to speak publicly. When Daily Mail tried to speak to Josie Murray on the property recently, she brandished a pump-action shotgun at our reporter.
Out! You are trespassing! Get out!
I'm so sorry,
Get out! Are you deaf?
Okay. I was leaving.
Get out!
I was leaving.
Shut your face and get out! We'll have the police on you because you've been warned not to come here.
I think Gus Lamont's family has something to hide. It's not just because they're quick to call the cops on journalists, but when he vanished in the outback, they waited 3 hours. So in today's video, let's watch this update together and count all the red flags. I'm Deception Detective, an attorney trained in statement analysis. This channel exposes lies and manipulation, so if that's your thing, hit subscribe. For early access to new videos, exclusive videos, and other cool perks, consider becoming a channel member. Link in description. If you're new to this case, don't worry, the clip itself will catch you up. So there's just one last thing I want to say before we dive in. Missing persons cases are unlike any other criminal investigation because silence is basically as good as a confession. Here's why. If you're the innocent parent of a missing child, being candid about what happened is worth the small risk of falsely incriminating yourself. After all, the more info you get out there, the better the odds are that your kid gets found alive. But if you're guilty, there's zero benefit to waiving your right to silence because you don't want the kid to be found after all, and the risk of incriminating yourself is very real. After all, you're actually guilty. Of course, that doesn't mean everyone who talks to the press is innocent and everyone who doesn't is guilty, but we'll get into that in a minute. For now, let's watch.
It's been more than 6 weeks since little Gus Lamont went missing on September 27. He's believed to have wandered off from his parents' remote sheep station in Yunta, which is about 230 kilometres north of Adelaide. His grandmother, Shannon Murray, was the last person to see him when he was playing in a mound of sand outside of the family homestead around 5 p.m. of that evening. No sign of Gus has been found since, despite multiple land, air and waterway searches from police, the Army and the SES. Various explanations for Gus's disappearance have been talked about, from disused mine shafts to wild animals. Police seem to be no nearer to working out what has become of the missing child. In fact, there seem to be more unanswered questions now than there were when he first vanished. Many conspiracy theories have circulated online, all as unlikely as the next. People have been particularly fixated on the theory that perhaps a wild animal got to Gus. Dingoes, a wild dog, have previously been responsible for abducting small children here in Australia.
If you've been here a while, you'll know that I've covered multiple missing child cases from Australia. And every time I do, I get someone in the comments telling me about the time a dingo actually did steal a baby. And while that did teach everyone a great lesson that unlikely things can and do happen, in Australia in particular, I think it created a little bit too much sensitivity about pointing the fingers at the parents when a child goes missing because no one wants to be wrong again. On this channel, I always go into every case with the statistically most likely scenario in mind, and then I adjust my theory as new information comes in. Or, in the case of a missing child, every day that goes by without the child being found, or any evidence that they were taken by an animal or kidnapped, I have to adjust my theory that they didn't just simply wander off, but were deliberately hidden. Here's a clip from one of my earlier videos in this series where I made that adjustment.
It's a huge area, and yet no evidence has been found, even though there's been a very detailed and lengthy search by police and other experts to try and locate Gus. So this is a particularly unusual case that they've searched for so long, and yet nothing has been discovered to indicate where Gus may be.
That criminologist and even that local gentleman are both correct. The longer the search goes on and the more extensive it is, the more suspicious it is that there's no trace of where Gus went. Even if he ran away, or an animal attacked him, or an accident befell him, or someone kidnapped him, I would expect some evidence at least to turn up by now. So the complete lack of any evidence at all, paired with the family's odd reticence about even asking for help finding him, suggests to me at least a subsequent cover-up, no matter what the actual cause of his disappearance was. I'll put that video as well as my Gus Lamont playlist on the end card if you want to see how my opinion of this case has evolved over time. But just to be clear, I've never been as suspicious as I am now, and you're about to see why. Let's keep watching.
Dingoes, a wild dog, have previously been responsible for abducting small children here in Australia. But there are precious few dingoes around in South Australia, and farmers tend to shoot them on sight. The region is also protected by a 1,200-mile-long dog fence. Crocodiles, which inhabit the tropical regions in Australia, are not found in the south. Gus is too big to have been taken by an eagle, and if he was attacked by a wild pig, some of which are in the area, there would have been signs of a bloody struggle. Local topography makes it almost impossible that a stranger could have abducted him. The nearest major road is the Barrier Highway, which takes long-distance truckers to New South Wales from South Australia. But to reach it, Gus would have had to walk about 30 kilometres. If he had wandered off and simply perished, many would have thought that his remains would have been found by now. I spoke to Ken Gamble, one of Australia's top private investigators. He has speculated where police may have gone wrong in their search for Gus. When police first arrived on the evening Gus went missing, they immediately began a ground search within a 2-kilometre radius. But 6 days later, the search was scaled back. It wasn't until authorities returned days later that they widened the operation again, this time to a 5-kilometre radius. Mr. Gamble says Gus's abilities may have been underestimated. He says the early search should have looked far beyond the initial 2-kilometre radius. He says if it were up to him, he would have launched a wide-scale, grid-based search covering 7 to 8 kilometres from the outset, a massive sweep that could have captured any direction the little boy might have travelled. You would think in that terrain that there would be footprints if he had walked off, Mr. Gamble said, noting that the one lone footprint matching a boot Gus was thought to be wearing was discovered in the dust. It is unusual behaviour for a child to just run off into the bush. It's not normal, but if he did go and do that, he could have gone in any direction and he could have gone a significant distance, he said. Police can underestimate just how far someone, especially an energetic little boy, can wander. The boy's family, which includes parents Josh Lamont and Jessica Murray, grandmother Shannon Murray, and transgender grandparent Josie Murray, have refused to speak publicly.
As I said in the intro, it's suspicious that all the adults in Gus's life are so silent. I haven't seen them plead for any kidnappers to come forward or even plead for help finding Gus. On the contrary, they chased off a journalist who wanted to write about the case with a shotgun. But that's not the only example of guilty adjacent behavior on display here. And to be clear, we've called plenty of people who are later found to be guilty based on these behaviors. And they're these. No one is suspicious of each other. Remember, their story is that Gus was alone with one grandparent when he disappeared, but I've never seen the mother who apparently wasn't at the house at the time, or the other grandparent who wasn't there, or the estranged father who lives 2 hours away, ever accuse each other or even question their story, which, in my opinion at least, is extremely implausible. After all, the father was told hours later, I think the next day, that Gus was missing, which means that the grandparents who searched for Gus for 3 hours never thought to call him to see if he knew where Gus was. Beyond that, the other bit of guilty behavior on display here is the lack of remorse. In other words, I don't see any of these parents who weren't around when Gus was out there all alone kicking themselves for not being there and watching him. Actual parents of missing children can't ever forgive themselves, even if it's not their fault, for not being around when their kid was taken or disappeared. To sum it up, we have a Russian parade of red flags, but we're not done yet. Let's keep watching.
When Daily Mail tried to speak to Josie Murray on the property recently, she brandished a pump-action shotgun at our reporter. The other grandparent, Shannon, was the last person to see the 4-year-old on the evening of September 27, when he was playing in the sand outside the family homestead at 5 p.m. When she went to call him at 5:30 p.m, he was gone. It has been speculated within the community near Yunta that the Murrays may now look to sell the Oak Park station that has been in their family for generations, passed down through Shannon's family line. It's believed the couple are in their 70s and their only child is Gus's mother, Jessica, who insiders say may not be able to carry on the family legacy after the trauma of losing her son. At the time that Gus vanished, Jessica's partner, Joshua Lamont, was at his own farmhouse in Balleley North, around a 2-hour drive from Oak Park Station. However, he now appears to have moved into another home which is understood to be owned by Shannon and Josie Murray. Joshua refused to speak to a Daily Mail reporter when approached on Tuesday. Jessica has not been seen since Gus vanished on September 27. It is understood that she remains at Oak Park Station with her 1-year-old son Ronnie, who she also shares with Joshua. SA Police Chief Grant Stevens said that they would return to Oak Park Station for further searches and that they have not yet given up on finding Gus. SA Police drained 3.2 million litres of water from a dam near the property last month but found no trace of the boy. The dam is around 600 metres from the homestead and is thought to have been about 4.5 metres deep.
So police have returned today to the Oak Park Station near Yunta in the continued search for Gus Lamont. Today we'll be focusing on draining a dam which is about 600 metres from the property. It's only about 4.5 metres deep. I stress the dam has already been searched by a Water Operations Unit. but just out of a sense of thoroughness, we were going to drain the dam just to check where the low-lying areas amongst the vegetation. This will complete today, and in terms of the drone searching that was undertaken, that has been assessed. Regrettably, nothing of any significance came from that drone footage, but over the next coming weeks we'll continue to assess the aerial footage that was taken more broadly across the property to see if there's any information from that leads us to any lines of inquiry.
That update from the Australian police is poetic. You have them in the background getting haircuts and beard trims so they look good on camera. Meanwhile, Gus is still out there missing. And it's not like they haven't had plenty of reasons to arrest everyone in Gus's family and question them. After all, Gus's family admits to extreme neglect. They let a 4-year-old play outside in the dark in an area where there's a bunch of venomous snakes, just 600 meters from an open, gigantic body of water. And I'm not guessing about the snakes. They said it themselves. That was their explanation for why one of them had a shotgun when the journalist came up to their front door. And if the snake story is true, killing snakes is apparently illegal according to the comments on my last video in Australia. And if there was no snake at all, then you have someone who was brandishing a shotgun to someone coming up to their front door, which is illegal. So is obstruction of justice by lying to the police about why they had a shotgun. In other words, no matter which way you cut it, you have a family that's extremely neglectful, or one that is extremely violent and deceptive, willing to lie to the police and brandish shotguns to people who are looking for their kid. But the Australian police, they seem content to just take them at their word, which goes back to what I said earlier about the dingoes. I think the Australian police in particular are very sensitive about accusing parents because they're traumatized by being wrong about the dingo. Let's keep watching.
Commissioner Stevens said there have been 2 reviews into the search efforts.
We've done minimum of 2 reviews in relation to the searching exercise from the moment we were advised of Gus having gone missing. Peer reviews by experts who have taken an objective view as to whether or not there could have been things done differently. Those reviews have identified opportunities to enhance what we've done, but there's been no criticism of the search effort from the moment we were notified. Acting on the advice from survivability experts, doctors, medical staff in relation to exactly what the likelihood of Gus, how far Gus might travel and how long he was able to survive without any support or assistance. There is no evidence of foul play at this time, but as I've said publicly before, we are still open to any possibilities that might have resulted in Gus having gone missing.
Despite 3 previous major search operations involving SAPOL, Airpol, the SES and the ADF, Gus has still not been found. It is not suggested that any of Gus's family members are involved in his disappearance.
At least the Australian police are satisfied with their own investigation, because I'm not. If you want to continue this investigation, let me know by liking, commenting, and sharing. Until next time, stay true.